Turn. Undisputed Live is where you can get us. Hashtag Undisputed Live. Here we go with the first tweet. Asked Dak if he liked his dragon yesterday, and we go, I want a dragon, Santa. Santa says, come on, be realistic. Okay, how about a playoff win? And Santa says, what color dragon, Dak? Meaning, I guess, getting a dragon for Christmas is more realistic than a playoff game. But wait a second. Dak did beat Tom Brady at Tom Brady just last year's playoffs. I don't know. I think it's still realistic.
Right.
Okay. Tweet number 2. Richard Sherman must have got a turntable for Christmas with the way he is trying to spin that Brock Purdy is still the MVP frontrunner after his 4-interception performance. If Dak did that, would he be justifying it to hypocrisy at its finest, says an obvious Cowboy fan to Richard Sherman as the kitty spins on the turntable.
I literally just said it was done after a 4-interception performance in December, but I guess
Fair
we
enough.
say anything.
And finally, we got a shot of our commercial, our funeral commercial. But
They're in the Cowboys.
Hey.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
You got me, but I got to say, the casket has not yet closed on this yet. I believe we can and will win at Tampa Baker. But we'll talk about that in just a few minutes because we got to talk about a monumental win for Antonio Pierce and the Raiders over their arch-rival Chiefs at Arrowhead. Chiefs have now lost 3 out of 4, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 8. Self-destructed on the field, imploded on the sideline yesterday. Michael Irvin, was Raiders 20, Chiefs 14 more about Raiders rising or Chiefs falling?
And that's a great question, and I think I go at it this way when I think about what they did. Did you ever think about this? Did you ever think? Because when I look at that question, I say, okay, is that about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs going woof, or is that about the Raiders and Coach Pierce pushing these guys up because they haven't beaten the Chiefs in a long time with no coach. They went out, in 6-7 years, they went out and gave Josh McDaniels $60 million over 6 years, almost $10 million a year. They gave him $10 million a year to come in and bring an offense that can match what Kansas City has. That's what they paid him for. Let me tell you what that offense did yesterday. That offense had 0 offensive touchdowns. I'm talking about the Raiders. That offense had 0 offensive touchdowns. Aiden O'Connell threw for 62 yards. 62 yards. They had 0 pass completions after the first quarter. None the last 3 quarters. None. 0 pass completions. And they beat Patrick Mahomes. How did they beat him? They beat him with Antonio Pierce's defense.
They did.
So if you're asking me, is this about the Chiefs falling or is this about Antonio Pierce raising up guys? Antonio Pierce defense, a defense that has scored 4 TDs in the last 2 weeks. Never done before in the history of the Raiders when you have back-to-back games like that where you score 4 defensive TDs.
Yep.
That right there in itself is incredible. So when you get a defense playing the way they're playing and an offense that's putting up nothing and you're beating teams like the Chiefs, no, that's on the Raiders. Because, we know Patrick Mahomes is great, and Patrick Mahomes was great yesterday, and he gave them many opportunities. It's just the people around him. And I'm going to tell you something. That defense was all over Patrick Mahomes yesterday. It was pretty incredible to watch. They had made up their mind. Antonio Pierce says, I talked to this team. We talked about going in this game with ill intent.
Yep.
Violence.
We
were going to bring pain. Right. And they brought that pain to the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no way you can take credit away from the job he's done if you've been trying to bring in people for the last, I don't know how many years and giving them $60, $70, $80 million to beat the Chiefs, and he just did it for you.
Well said.
Irv, playmaker. He said everything, Skip. We could just walk away. But I think that this is definitely more about the Raiders than it is the Chiefs. Now, the Raiders are doing fantastic things defensively, and they deserve credit. They've done fantastic things the last few weeks defensively. We talked about the defensive touchdowns. Jack Jones, who played for Antonio Pierce at Long Beach Poly in high school, has been a revelation for him. I mean, he kind of called his shot before the game and said, hey, if we get to Patrick Mahomes and we rattle him, the rest will fall into position.
Yep.
And that's what they say, Irv.
Yep.
Hey, you cut the head off the snake,
magic from the magician. Mm-hmm. Right, they said take the magic from the magician, and the rest will fall away.
The act is over. The act is over.
The act is over. It's a pretty cool. That was a pretty cool saying.
And he backed it up.
Irv, what'd you say? Attack your weakness. You can beat a team by attacking their weakness.
You can beat a team attack its weakness, but you can break them if you attack their strength. And they looked broken yesterday.
They looked broken, and they attacked their strength. And then you saw the play where Patrick Mahomes fumbled the football, and you're like usually in those plays, we're like, man, the Chiefs are just backyard football. They can just do whatever. This time you're like, what are they doing? And the Raiders are like, violent, ill intentions. Like, oh, y'all want to get cute? Smack them in the mouth. Score a touchdown. Like, we're not playing this game with you anymore. And they said, hey, you did that ring around the rosy stuff and embarrassed us a few years ago. We're not playing that game anymore. So I think if you're Mark Davis and you're not already drawing up the paperwork to sign Antonio Pierce to a long-term deal, then I don't think you're doing it right. I don't think you're in the spirit of what your late great father, Al Davis, had in mind. Antonio Pierce embodies everything the Raiders want to be and everything that they've been in their past. You talk about a motivator, a guy who's willing to take a shot to get into the trenches with his players. He's that guy. He's a guy that went in here and beat your division rival, the #1 team in your division for a long time, one of the best teams in the National Football League for the last 5-6 years, and hit him in the mouth and said, hey, we're here to stay.
We're here to stay. So, Richard, I'm glad you brought up the late, great Al Davis, the godfather of this franchise. I was blessed to know him well, spent a lot of time around him, loved him. He was the ultimate maverick. He was against the grain. He did a lot of things the NFL did not love. I loved the man, and I loved watching and covering his glory days teams because they played this kind of defense that you saw yesterday. They knocked your block off. They played with physicality. They played with ill intent. They played with violence. And they brought pain, as Antonio said before and after the game yesterday. And it gave my heart some Christmas joy. I know we're combining pain with Christmas, but if you love football the way I do, and if you've been around it the way I have, and you've gotten to spend as much time as I got to spend with Al Davis and Bill Walsh and Tom Landry and on and on and on, Jimmy Johnson, you appreciate what you saw yesterday because it was a Christmas miracle what they pulled off. And there was nothing phony about it. There's nothing fake about it. There's no smoke and mirrors about it. It's just punch them in the mouth.
Right.
It's we want this worse than you want this. You can have Taylor Swift up in the suite if you want her. She can look down on your team and bless your team if you want that, but we don't care. We're going into Arrowhead in prime Christmas time, and we're going to do a number on your magician quarterback. And I know Antonio very well from ESPN. I work closely with him. I know Michael knows him very well, went to take a look at the inside Raiders practices and inside their facility. I know Richard knows him, but the Antonio I know has charismatic intensity about him, where when he speaks, you just listen to him. And to Richard's point, he's straight out of Compton. He was a Raider fan when the Raiders played in Los Angeles. He looks the part. He acts the part because he is the part. He's part and parcel of Raider Nation. He is that guy. He can exude what silver and black really means, heart of hearts. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And I'm assuming the son of Al Davis, Mark, is now thinking, well, I don't want to bless him yet. I don't want to give him a long-term contract yet because we're playing at such a high level. We're on such a roll. Maybe we need to keep the carrot out there and let him sort of, the team think we got to play for him. We got to win for him. We got to win. We got to get him a deal. Got to get him a long-term deal. And I appreciate that. But you can make a case now that if you did bless him, if you did name him officially the head coach and you did give him a longer-term contract right here, right now, that might take this team to another level because it's all there. You got all the pieces in place. And yet, to your points, Aiden O'Connell throws for 62 yards, but that kid, Zeus White, he's been a revelation the last 2 games in place of Josh Jacobs because they stole him in the 4th round of the draft out of Georgia because he was just in the rotation at Georgia. They had like 4-headed monster at running back, so it was hard to draw a bead on just how good he would be, even though he was their best back. And look what he did again yesterday. They just ran it down. Kansas City's throw 22 for 145. That was the game. And then quickly, let's look before I hand the ball back to you guys. Let's look at those back-to-back turnovers with 5.